Hello and good evening and welcome to the Invictus Racing League. My name is Harry and you join us tonight for the Round 10 IRL F3 League. We're at the Singapore Marina Bay circuit and I'm joined as always on a Wednesday night, joined by my good friend Charlie. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, and as usual, looking forward to it. And this is an extremely difficult race, so it'd be interesting to see who keeps their heads tonight under the lights.
Absolutely, of course. Round 10 out of 12, only 3 races to go, just 2 after this evening. Of course, tonight is the Marina Bay Singapore circuit, of course, one of the trickiest circuits on the F1 calendar in general, not just out of the 12 rounds. And of course, with Monaco to come in round 12, the final race of the season, these guys are really going to have to keep their concentration for the last 3 rounds. And I suppose we should probably talk about a little bit in terms of the comparison between Singapore and Marina Bay, because I suppose a little bit of argument. Of course, we all know how difficult Monaco is. It's probably obviously a far more historic, it's been on the calendar for far longer. But in terms of challenge, these two really are in the top band in terms of concentration, aren't they?
Yeah, I think definitely. Monaco maybe you could argue is a bit more difficult because it is that little bit tighter. But this is at night time. It's under the lights. There's a lot of factors you got to take in. This is you struggle with temperatures more around here, so there's different things you have to factor in. And obviously in real life in Singapore you have the added factor of the temperature and humidity and the amount of stress your body is under. So yeah, they're both extremely difficult. You could, I guess, argue for either of them being more difficult than the other, but yeah, it's a difficult task enough just to stay focused. So I'm sure these guys will be fully focused tonight and raring to go.
Absolutely, of course, I think we just have our first car coming out of the pit lane, and 18 minutes, of course, for qualifying tonight. And of course, I'm sure they've got plenty of time. It's quite a long lap. So they will have to be fairly concentration on their lap to not ruin it. Of course, invalidations are, as always, particularly quite key tonight, especially around the street circuit, as I think Tinnis in Haas is the first man onto the race circuit. And interestingly, he's gone out on a set of soft tyres, Charlie, and we know this circuit is pretty hard on tyres, but I suppose even more so tyre temperatures. We're probably expecting more people to qualify on the medium tyres because the soft tyres can really burn up quite quickly.
Yeah, saying that the two-stop is definitely a valid option around here, but like you say, that the soft tyre, if you start on it just burns out so quickly because the tyre temperatures are so hard to control, and on that heavy fuel at the beginning it's even more difficult. So yeah, like you say, we would be expecting more people to qualify on that medium compound.
Let's see, just going over the bridge there, of course, coming into the difficult hairpin of turn 13, and of course this back straight here is a decent overtaking opportunity in terms of Singapore comes. It is one of the hardest tracks to overtake on the calendar. You have 2 DRS zones. You have the DRS going from the exit of turn 5 just around the right hand kink of turn 6 and into the heavy braking zone of the left of turn 7 in the first sector. That's your best overtaking move. And you also have the DRS straight down the home straight coming out that last corner into turn 1. Not so much overtaking you usually see there. I think that's usually more a DRS zone to try and get you closer to the car ahead so you can make the move into the next DRS zone. But I'm sure these guys will be trying something the best they can, of course, when overtaking is so difficult around here. And of course, we don't know the weather forecast yet. Seeing quite a lot of guys out there, a couple of guys out there on softs, and a lot of them going out on mediums as well, which is very early. So it could possibly be possible that there could be forecast for rain, and those guys who are perhaps expecting rain, therefore being a little bit harder on their tyre choice for qualifying, because it seems like wet weather in Singapore has been quite a common theme in Invictus in the last couple of days.
Yes, and you talk about that now. The soft tyres that people are on make sense. Just I had a word from one of our drivers that it's a full wet race start, so that's going to make things a lot more interesting.
As you see, Tinnis there just hopping all over the curbs there of turn 9 left-hander, and it's quite a bizarre place to invalidate, but nevertheless we'll go on board with the number 14 Ferrari driver of Colin, see what he can do in the Ferrari. after not being able to join us, I don't think, last week in Canada. So I'm sure he wanted to try and get back underway in the streets of Singapore as he comes now flicking it down into the turn 8, a very twisty part and technical part of the track. Want to get a good exit out of turn 9. I want to avoid that wall on the right hand side. You can so easily just nip off a little bit of an end plate, and of course nip off an end plate on your qualifying lap. You're going to have to immediately come back in, because just the slightest bit of damage is going to cost you a hell of a lot of time on here, and of course in the race as well. Just keeping out the walls, having a nice clean race, could probably find yourself gaining a position or two, because it's just guaranteed that someone is going to go into the wall at some point. It's just so hard for all these guys tonight, as of course I think he's the first guy to potentially be setting a lap calling. So he's got purple in that middle sector. Of course there's now Luke Bailey does a 37.0 on that medium tyres, so he set himself a pretty nice banker, as we now see come under the grandstands of turns 18 and the right of 19. It's going to come into the last 4 corners now. Could hop over the curves of turn 20 and try and ride it out of 21. So really like splashing there, so it might be saying a little bit of EOS, but it comes around the last 2 corners, opens the EOS and does 36.6, which puts him just about provisional pole. Simon Palmer also goes about half a second slower than his teammate.
Yeah, I'm imagining those Alphas are getting bankers in on that medium compound, like you said. Yeah, so it's a fairly good lap from Colin. I'm sure he'll want to find a bit more time, but the beauty of this now with the full wet race start is this should just be a straight shootout for pole. So these guys are going to have a couple of attempts at it. I'm assuming they've all taken at least 2 or 3 compounds of the soft tyres into this session, and yeah, they'll all be giving it their best shot and going hell for leather on those softs.
Absolutely, of course. Usually for Singapore, you want to take the harder allocation of tyres, which allows you to get 2 sets of soft tyres and 1 set of mediums. And Craig didn't come across the line. He went purple in that middle sector, but there's a 37.8, which is a few tenths slower than Simon Palmer, who dominated the Canadian Grand Prix. Took the win from pole position and absolutely dominated. Craig came home in a solid P2 to really give himself a real boost in the championship, and yeah, he can win the championship tonight, but if he wants to do that, it's going to hope Luke Bailey doesn't score. He's going to need to take home the race win and the fastest lap, so I think tonight will be a case of just setting himself up to give him the best chance of winning the Grand Prix, Grand Prix and the championship come round 11 in Silverstone. So we'll just have to keep an eye on him over the night. Of course, they're saying that he's not interested in the championship right now, just trying to do the best he can. He knows how good the Alphas were in Canada, and they just want to get his head down and try and get maximum points tonight and not think about the championship all too much. We see Gareth now in the Williams coming out. Of course, there used to be the treble chicane here, one of the worst corners I think we ever saw on an F1 track. Of course, thankfully now removed, and in its place we now just have turn 10 as he comes out of over the bridge and into the hairpin of turn 13. Got to get on the power the best you can, because of course it's quite a long straight. Of course, these guys are running a lot of downforce on the street circuit. I'm sure these guys are probably even having double digits on their rear wing, maybe even on their front wing, especially if it's going to be a wet race start. Is Gareth now in the final sector, going to try and get a good banker on these medium tyres. Still got 3 guys in the top 10 who set their first laps on the soft tyres, of Colin on provisional pole. Got Luke Bailey, who's in the pit lane, I should say. Synchronizia, I think, has done a 37.4 on the soft tyres. And looks like Simon Palmer's just about to change onto soft tyres as well, so I'm interested to see what he can do. Obviously, very good form in terms of qualifying this season, as Gareth moves up into P8 and about a tenth of a second quicker than the championship main man, Craig.
Yeah, it was a tidy lap by Gareth. I'm sure he'll have a couple of attempts here and there to gain, but yeah, it's on those mediums at the moment. It's all about just getting your eye in and getting a feel for the track. So he's done that particularly well. He's like quicker than Craig, Nitro, and a few other guys. So yeah, it's a nice banker by Gareth, and I'm sure he'll be back into the pits now to get ready for those soft runs.
And if you're wondering why we're seeing Sab on our screens, no, you have to click to jump down into F3 races. He's had a real tough time in F2 this season. He said it's just gone up another level. We couldn't quite seem to match and he's decided to move these last 3 races down to the tier, try and pick up his speed on the steering wheel, get a bit of practice in as he just struggles a little bit coming out under the grandstand, and he's going to use these 3 races as nothing more than a bit of practice and a bit of experience for the new game. But he's going to round out the final 2 corners on the soft tyres on the Racing Point. His first lap in F3 this season, puts in P11, 38.1, and I'm sure he could be trying to go a little bit quicker, but of course it's all about trying to get a little bit of a rhythm, and both of us have been practicing with Sab, and of course we know it is such a challenge, this game in general, pad on wheel, but you can only imagine someone who's been on the pad for so long, and of course it is particularly for your first race on the wheel, at least in league racing, this is not an easy place to start, but in terms of the progress he's made, he's already, when you're riding on board of him, he does seem fairly consistent, and he's really picked up a lot of progress already.
Yeah, he's been practicing a lot on it, and he's doing pretty well. So it's good to see, and he's only going to get better the more and more he does. So it's good to see, and he's made the drop down, which was probably the right thing to do, because he would have been way out of his comfort zone in Formula 2 in our F2 tier. So yeah, I think it's a good move for Sab, and he's not too far off the pace at the moment.
Only had 1 points finish in the F2 season this far in 9 rounds, and well, I'm sure he'd be over the moon if he gets some points tonight, but of course it's just about trying to keep his head down, and I'm sure so I said even keeping it outside, just trying to keep it on the track, and I'm sure if he can just cross that start-finish line without any damage, I'm sure he'll be having a good time. But we'll see what Malc can do in the Red Bull on the medium tyres, and Drejo also settled up, because Drejo's really picked up his form in the last couple of races.
Yeah, he had electrifying pace in Italy, as we saw, and went from went from being really not too competitive in the previous races to in Italy just taking pole and taking that win convincingly. So that was great to see, and his pace was very good equally in the last race as well. So back in Canada, picking up that podium. So he's a massive improvement in his form, and I'm sure he'll be looking to kick on from that and continue that to the end of the season, because I believe he can make up a couple of places in the championship.
And see Jeffrey, who's currently sat in P3 at 37.000, and he's going 3 tenths quicker on that middle sector split, so we'll see if he can go any quicker. Of course, he's currently had a really poor run of 4 DNFs in the last 5, so it just really hasn't been his own way, as Luke Bailey says a 35.9, a flying lap. That is absolutely 7 tenths of a second faster than the Ferrari of Colin. I'm sure a lot of guys still yet to go on the soft tyres, so we'll have to see if anyone can better on that, see what Jeffrey can do on his set of soft tyres in the Racing Point as comes around the last couple of corners now, and goes up into P4 as Simon Palmer also improving about half a second on the Ferrari time of Colin. But it's still got a couple of attempts to find on his team, so the Alpha's looking really, really sturdy so far, and see a lot of guys out there on the soft tyres as Spud is going to round out the last couple of corners on the medium tyres. See what he can do as he flick opens the ice, he goes up into P9, and the 2 Ferraris are really slowly but surely getting their season underway. They had a bit of a slow start, but both of them have been making progress over the last few races, and it's looking like it's got a little bit better for them. It looks like Stephen is about to set a flying lap on the soft tyres as well. Currently sat in P16 with a 38.8. As he said, he's been a little bit shocked, I think, in about his season. He hasn't been impressive at all. Of course, coming into the season hoping that he'd be somewhere amongst the championship hunt, but for one reason or another, a little bit of bad luck getting involved in incidents, says, and not quite having the pace he perhaps expected. It hasn't quite worked out for him this season, but I'm sure he just wanted to try and round out these best 3 races that he possibly can, and of course move on to the new game for season 11, and hopefully try and recover some of that form, as we've got a yellow flag sector 1. I think that might be just one of the Red Bulls.
I believe that was still just getting out of the way. Gareth maybe just started a lap.
See, Steve now coming into that middle sector, he's going 3 tenths of a second quicker, so he's certainly improving. I think got Craig up, he's about to say he's just about on a lap, and he's gone a little bit quicker than Simon Palmer, so goes up into P2, so it's the man in second that currently in the championship that currently leads the man in first But I'm sure Craig will be very pleased with that lap time, because it does put him right on the gearbox of his nearest championship rival. And he knows it's all about he's got to just manage the gap. He doesn't really have to beat Luke Bailey in these last few rounds. He's just got to keep it nice and composed. If he can just finish on a podium, it's an incredible streak of 6 podiums in succession, as though Stephen does go quicker by about a second, but it sadly only puts him up a couple of positions. But it's all about management for Craig in this championship now. He knows it's in his hands, and he knows only mistakes are really going to bring it away from Luke Bailey. Luke Bailey knows he's going to have to try and win at least a couple of these next 3 races, and maybe hope for a mistake from Craig on his own, as see Synchronously also going purple in that middle sector, improving by a few attempts. But it looks like, Charlie, we're 4 minutes left in the session. Looks like it's going to be all guns blazing, soft tyres. Who's going to go for it?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of cars in the pits, and I'm imagining they'll be selecting that new set and waiting for the optimal time to come out onto the track. So Gareth just about to cross the line now. Where's he going to go with his lap? Only in P10, so he's about a second off pole, which is Luke. It's an incredible time by Luke. Really impressive, and is equally as impressive for Craig to not feel the pressure and be able to do a lap that almost matches it. But yeah, I'm sure Gareth will be wanting to find a little bit more time than what he's currently found.
It looks like both Malc and Sab just finding the limits of the track limits in qualifying at the moment. Both looking like they've invalidated their next times on the softs. Obviously a little bit frustrating, as Drazio, as we were saying, has really picked up his form, and again just proving that in Canada, coming home in P3 after a really good battle with Steele, who in his own right came home for a really strong P4 in the Mercedes. And of course we know how good those two are, and Drazio, particularly on his day, really does prove himself to be one of the quickest drivers on the grid. He just hasn't had the consistency of Luke Bailey and Craig, and those two really have been the form of the moment, but has sort of slipped a little bit from Luke Bailey's grasp of the championship. He was very, very nip and tuck. I think he's only maybe even a point behind Craig around the mid-season break, but just a couple of mistakes in Canada and Italy just opened that door a little bit for Craig, and Craig has definitely taken it. But he knows tonight is a good chance, especially with his teammate also being very, very quick. These two alphas can get track position, and we know how crucial track position is around this circuit. If they can get ahead of Craig, it really could be good, of course, with the possibility of rain in the race. That could really just bring in that little bit of unpredictability that he may need. There's still sat in P9 just behind his teammate, improves by 6 tenths of a second, and then it goes into a 36 flat, so it goes up into P2. So that's a very, very good lap, but I think sadly it won't have time for another one, but that's a very good lap from the Mercedes driver.
Yeah, that is a good lap. Put himself right amongst the mixers. It still sometimes does. Like you say, he's got very good pace and is quick as quick as anyone on his day. So he's obviously enjoying this difficult circuit under the lights, and he's found himself up in P2. So I'm not sure he'll be able to get another time in though. So I think that is Steele's qualifying session more than likely done.
And Luke Bailey, the man on provisional pole position, won by about a tenth of a second, and he's starting his last lap, and he's got a few cars ahead of him. We'd be hoping they know full aware that he's coming, or maybe on a lap of their own. I think it might be the McLaren or Brennan's even ahead of him, as it looks like Craig's also on an out lap. Got a couple of yellow flags.
Tinnis has just found himself in the wall at the end of the straight before the Singapore sling. He is just, I don't know, I'd literally just flicked on board with him, and he was locking up and spearing straight into the wall. 2 front wheels are off, and that is his qualifying session done. I'm assuming he was on a push lap, really pushing to try and improve his position, and it's just not worked out. So that's unfortunate for Tinnis.
And Stephen also retiring from the session, so they're currently down in P16 and P18 with Malc and Drazio yet set lap. Drazio also on an out lap with another yellow flag. I think that might be maybe just Jeffrey getting out of the way, or even Sab, as we just come across. We're going right on board with...
No, that is O'Stephen in the wall.
Oh, is it?
That is O'Stephen's car in the wall. I saw him retire, but I didn't know where. I thought maybe he just pulled into the pits and retired, but I just hopped on board with JSP, and as he came round the hairpin just after you finished sector 1, O'Stephen's car is just in the wall, and it's completely ruined his lap. So I'm sure he's lost a lot of time on this lap, as Luke Bailey goes a lot quicker now, and that is another incredible lap from Luke, and he's really just putting his his marker down here and showing everyone that he is the quickest on this track at the moment.
There's still will not getting over time to go, but his teammate certainly will. When he goes across the line, he does improve and goes ahead of Craig, which I'm sure Luke Bailey will be very pleased about. He gets himself up into P3, can't quite get himself ahead of the Mercedes. He's about a 10,000th of a second behind the Malc driver. As we see Craig, he's just coming around the hairpin of turn 13, going to go to power as soon as he can, trying to really open up. Nitro Gas is also, I think he's on the lap as well. He's got himself into P5, so he's had a really handy lap, as Craig's actually going slower in this middle sector. He's about a 10th of a second down. He's only going to have to improve by about half a tenth to get himself into second place, but of course his 10th time he's going to have to find even more time. He's going to have to really fling it around these last couple of corners in this last sector. He comes underneath the grandstand, and we'll have to see what he can do around turns 19, the right-hander.
Oh,
and
no,
of course,
that's not how you do it. He's just lost it coming out from under the bridge. He's just pushing a bit too hard to try and gain that time back that he lost, and it's not worked out, has it?
No, it's very rare you see a mistake from the championship leaders. It's like Nitro Gas just validating there. I think the yellow flag might not have helped, maybe a little bit of a distraction as he's still in the wall. I think he's just very cautious that he doesn't. In fact, he's been disqualified for parking in a dangerous location. As all that chaos, we miss a fabulous lap by Brennon's, because just 1,000th of a second off P2. As Jeffrey also improves himself, I think improves himself up into P5. Wojtek as well has gone up there. And I think that's it. But I mean, the Champions League leader Craig, who looked pretty very certain for a second or maybe third row start, through the game's understanding, has disqualified him. I think he was being very cautious to get back on circuit, but I think he was wary that those cars coming back around the circuit and don't want to get in the way and ruin their lap anymore. But he's now going to be finding himself starting right at the back of the grid.
Yeah, I think that's super unfortunate for Craig, because really, by the law of rejoining the track, he was doing the right thing. He was on the inside of the circuit. He didn't want to reverse onto the racing line when this guy's coming around on their quali lap. As you know, we got ghosting off. So yeah, he was doing the right thing, and the game's just seen that he's been plonked in one place for too long and penalised him for that, which is really unfortunate. That it's blown this championship wide open again, hasn't it? Luke Bailey now on pole is in a massively advantageous position.
Yeah, and it's good to see Brennon's getting himself up into the conversation for perhaps a race win tonight. So he's qualified P3. We know what he can do in a race. Hasn't had it all his own way since. So after a really good podium in Germany, he had a DNF in Brazil, and he also had a DNF in Canada. Only picked up the single point in Monza, so I'm sure he'll be looking to get himself not just back onto the podium, but maybe even a race win for the McLaren. But Luke Bailey is your pole sitter and really dominated qualifying in the end. The only man into the 35s, in fact he did 2 laps in the 35, still goes P2, Brennon's P3, Simon Palmer P4, Jeffrey P5, Wojtek is on the 3rd row, Nitro Gas, Colin, Treasure and GSP are your top 10. Cryptox, Captain Stiff, Synchronizis, Spud and Sab qualifying at P15 ahead of some really respectable F3 drivers like the likes of O. Stephen and F1 Richards. So a fine debut for Sab, and of course as you're saying, it's a really tough track to get used to for the first time on a wheel, and there it is, as we was promised, a rainy start. And I suppose, I mean, we all know how big a problem this is going to be for Craig, starting from the back, particularly when your championship rival is in P1. But I mean, for Luke Bailey, this has got to be such an opportunity. He knows if he gets a clean run into turn 1, if he's got the race pace that he showed in qualifying, this could be a really good night for him, because he knows deep down that this is an incredible tough track to overtake on.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity here for Luke to really try and take back control of this championship, because Craig is going to be a massive disadvantage down at the back there in this heavy rain. He's going to have all the spray of the other 19 cars going onto his visor and just blocking his visibility, and he's going to not be able to see really where he's going into turn 1. So he could find himself in a bit of drama if a couple of guys make mistakes. So yeah, Luke is a massive advantage if he can keep it clean down to turn 1, like you say. Yeah, this is really a massive chance now for Luke to come back at Craig.
Of course, Craig, the only man to have scored points in every single round. I'm sure just getting a few points tonight wouldn't be a bad result from the back of the grid around Singapore. and of course he's got 6 podiums in a row. He's going to need an absolute stellar drive to try and make it 7. Luke Bailey knows this is probably such a great opportunity to get himself a 2nd win of the season. Of course, only both Craig and Luke only 1 win this season, despite being fairly comfortable 1st and 2nd in the championship. Drazio in P3 has got 2 wins to his name after a win in Spa and a win in Monza, and of course Simon Palmer as well, P4, quite a few points behind his teammates, but yeah, he's got 2 wins himself. Of course, won the opening round of Japan Suzuka, and of course won last week here at Invictus, the F3 Canada. And of course a little bit, I suppose, if Drazio and Simon, if they know that Craig doesn't perhaps get any points at all, and if these guys can get on the podium, I suppose in their own minds, I suppose it does at least open the door to a miracle happening in the last 2 races. But I'm sure Luke, it's quite a short run into turn 1, so that's certainly helping. But of course the rain, if you just get on the power that little bit too hard, and of course in normal conditions the start can be a difficult one, and in these wet conditions he's going to try and make the most of this formation lap start, I'm sure, just to try and learn the surface the best he can for when he comes to do it for real in just a lap's time. But of course there is your grid, and of course the Craig P20 just got ahead of him, Malc, Tennis and O. Stephen as F1 Richards as well, P16. And Sab's going to have all the spray of 14 cars ahead of him, which I'm sure will be a bit of a nerve-wracking experience on the wheel, but I'm sure he'll be trying to do the best he can to come through it. Of course, all these guys on the intermediate tyres, it looks like, and I think there could be a possibility of it drying up towards the end of the race, Charlie, I think I heard, which could at least be something for Craig. If he can't make the progress he feels he could do, then he has got the option of maybe trying to look a little bit bold on strategy.
Yeah, it will certainly give you a chance of making up some positions once this track dries out towards the end of the race, as we are promised. This track dries really quickly. It's strange. It goes from being really wet and really slippery to dry quite quickly, but offline it can also really be slippery still. So it's difficult. Once you get onto those slicks, you don't want to push too hard to begin with, because it's not bone dry straight away. But you can't. The problem is, because it's all lit, you can't see the damp offline. So if you get offline here on those slick tyres, once it starts to dry, you can find yourself in a lot of bother, and it becomes really difficult to negotiate this long circuit. So yeah, it'll be interesting when that changeover does come to see who adapts to it the best.
And Drazio there in P9, and Cryptox, the two Tobossos, had a really fine race, as Drazio's when they came P3 in Canada, and Cryptox in his own right coming home in P5. So those two in P9 and P11, they'll just be trying to perhaps take all full opportunity of their good form and try and move up the grid the best they can. Of course, the Haas of Wojtek has always been sort of near the front. He's been a very good qualifier and hasn't had it all his own way. And of course, Haas haven't had it all that well in terms of point scoring this season, but I'm sure it's a good opportunity for him to try and make up some more points. Of course, Simon Palmer knows that he needs to try and keep it clean, so to have a couple of cars already on the grid, and looks like that might be Sab on one of the McLarens, maybe F1 Richard, so I don't know what that is about. They're going to have had no experience of these wet conditions come lap 1. But Luke Bailey has parked his car up. He's ready to start this Singapore Grand Prix. S2 is still in P2, of course. Let's hope it's not quite as chaotic as the 2017 F1 start in the rain of Singapore, where of course we saw Sebastian Vettel, Max Verstappen and Kimi Räikkönen all come to blows before even turn 1 even happened. And we're now waiting on 5 red lights, and of course these guys are going to be even more tentative on the throttle, but it's going to be good lights out, and it's going to be, looks like it's strong stuff. Luke Bailey want to minimise the wheel spin best he can. We'll have to see what Luke still starts. It's going to be a pretty cautious start from the Mercedes. He's going to file in behind, as it looks like the wheel to wheel with the Racing Point and Simon Palmer as they come into turn 3, see what they can do. It's like Jeffrey's going to try and hang it around the outside. It'll be a fabulous move if he can do it. He's going to have the inside line for turn 5. He can just try and stay alongside. It looks like he's got the position just about done. This has been a strong start for Luke Bailey, but it's a position down for Simon Palmer. It's a Ferrari of Colin losing it all out of shape, as Nitrogas has lost a couple of positions. Oh, and the Ferrari at the back there, it's a Spud spinning straight into the wall. Oh, and then it's a Dorado Synchronously, and I think that was that Cryptox flying into the wall,
no.
and Stevens retired as well, a safety car after about 6 laps.
Yeah, 6 corners. It's that's unfortunate for Stephen. I think I'm not sure because I think you might have called it, but did the Renault lose control and then Stephen sort of was collected by?
I think the Renault Synchronous and Cryptox sort of made contact around turn 6. I think Cryptox sort of spun halfway across the track, and I can only assume Stephen rather unfortunately went straight into the side of him, I think.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate for Stephen to be out on lap 1. But we do have a safety car, so that allow the guys who picked up damage to pit and repair that. So yeah, as often is the case on this track, you get going and you're stopped immediately by a safety car. So as we've seen on previous nights, which is it can be frustrating. If you're Luke Bailey, you've got a good start and you just want to get on with it. But equally, it gives those guys at the back that have picked up damage the chance to get and repair that and have a clean start. Craig up to P12 though, incredibly, from that start. So he's had a blinding start. I think he's completely damage free. So that's worked out brilliantly for him.
Yeah, 8 positions on that opening lap. And I'm just looking, just talking about damage there, just looking at the cars of Cryptox, Spad and Tennis. And I believe all 3 of them are missing an end plate at least. And I think the Ferrari of Colin ahead of Craig is also missing an end plate, as it looks like he's peeling into the pits. So that's another position for the championship leader. He's missing an end plate on that front left. It looks like he's almost struggling to get it into the pit lane. It's a really awkward pit lane here. Of course, it's a slow limiter as well, so you've got to be really cautious, as Gareth has also picked up a couple of positions. And Sab, keeping out of troubles, has got himself up into P12. And I don't think Craig has asked for a better start, but instantly on lap 2, now picking up a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits. So it's actually just riding aboard of him from the far shot and just going over the turn 2. And of course we know it's a particularly harsh track limits there at turn 2. If you go all full wheels off just by even an inch, you will get a warning there. But under safety car, it seems we've got a 5-second penalty for that. And of course the problem with that is he's going to be forced to serve that when he next comes into the pit.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate. That is easy to do under safety car. You've only got to just tremble across a curb and you pick up an instant 5 seconds, which is a bit unfair because you don't really gain anything, but that's just the game for you. And we have to deal with that. So yeah, he will have to serve that in the pits, which is completely unfortunate.
And of course Malc in the Red Bull, of course you may know him, he of course presents to you guys alongside Tim on Tuesday nights. He presents the Realistic Performance League, and of course if you didn't see the Realistic Performance League race last night, I really recommend you catch up and really watch it back. Particularly the last 2-3 laps was something I can also say I've never seen before. Of course you was in that race, Charlie. Probably a good opportunity, probably the craziest race of the season in all the tiers we have here at Invictus. You sort of in amongst it in P3 coming into that final 2 laps, but it was absolute chaos, and of course Scope of course in the end somehow winning.
Yeah, it was chaos. It was seemingly going smoothly on lap 30 out of 31 as we headed through the first sector, and just managing the gap to Scope behind because I knew I had a penalty, and came round through sector 1 into that little hairpin just after it, and yeah, there was a wild Mercedes in the wall, and all 3 of us were caught out by it, and all picked up some sort of damage. I think Sam got away fairly cleanly, but he picked up damage then the next lap, and Scope went through without any damage, which was fortunate. Yeah, and it was just, for me, it was a case of driving that last lap, knowing I could have easily finished 3rd, but driving that last lap without a front wing, trying to hold on to any position I could, and eventually trundling across the line, running out of fuel in fact, and somehow still picking up 3rd. It was a incredible last couple of laps, and yeah, I really recommend to anyone watching, go and watch it, because it was just, I've never really seen anything like it either. It was just crazy. It was so hard to navigate and keep up and process what was happening. It was really enjoyable, to be honest, but yeah, a bit crazy.
There's a fabulous shot of you with suddenly after staying such a comfortable 3rd position, and of all of a sudden after switch off with Sam, who of course somehow found himself into the lead, right on board of you, and suddenly getting pushed around the last corner by 4 different cars there, and somehow still claiming onto P3 anyway. But yeah, it was a fabulous race and a really good watch. And Luke Bailey, I'm sure, will be hoping that this safety car comes in at the end of this lap, as though. So Spud looks like he's gone into the pits again, I think. So I'm not sure what that's all about. He might have picked up damage possibly by pushing too hard on his outlet, trying to catch up. Tinus and Cryptox, as you can see there on the track map on the right hand side of your screen, and also just struggling to catch up a little bit. Of course, the safety car still out, and of course it probably will be in this lap. I think Cryptox should be alright, and I think Tinus might be as well. So Spud might have to get his foot down here just a little bit. But it's been a really nice start from Jeffrey. He got past Simon Palmer, so went side by side through the first complex of corners, and of course Drajo and JSP also making up a couple of positions. Gareth had a good start to get himself up into P10 inside the points, and of course Craig, as we know, going from P20 all the way up into 11th position. Of course, he has got a 5-second penalty to serve, which he will do at his next pit stop. And so of course all those guys are 15 down as the positions they've lost, of Colin down 7, Synchronugely down 3, Cryptox down 6, and Spud down 5. But none of us unfortunate as though Stephen, as you can see there, P20 DNF. I don't think it was his incident whatsoever. And it looks like the safety car is going to stay up for at least another lap here, which will, I'm sure, be a blessing to the ears of Sir Spud.
Yeah, it's a bit demoralising when you're that far behind and you see that it's coming in. You're like, oh no, that's not helped at all. But fortunately for him, it's staying out another lap. It's a grueling lap behind the safety car because it's so slow, especially in the wet round here. You just want to get going again, but for some reason Spud had to pit again, so we got to wait another lap. I'm sure Luke Bailey will be raring to go. But yeah, it's just about keeping tyre temps up and not actually taking too much out of your tyres in terms of wear under the safety car, because it's quite tempting to spin the rears up and try and get some heat into them, but you don't want to wear them at the same time, because it's going to be crucial on this restart that they're all in the best condition possible.
Absolutely. Of course, when you've got the word in your ear from Trusty Jeff that it's going to be drying up towards the end of the race, you of course you might want to try and eke these tyres out the best you can. If you can try and go straight from the intermediates to maybe the medium tyre or the soft or the hard straight to the slick tyres, you save yourself a pit stop there. If you burn out those intermediates, you need to pit for another set of intermediates before it then dries up. You are potentially going to lose a pit stop around here, and of course it's not an easy pit lane entry or exit around here. It's a really awkward one, and sure these guys will be trying to avoid it the best they can. Just like I said, Spud's just about to regroup with the line of cars, and it'll be good to see hopefully the safety car peel in at the end of lap 4. Luke Bailey will certainly be pleased to see it, but I'm wondering if he's just had a little look or trying to find out where his championship rival is, and I'm sure he won't be glad to know that Craig has made up so many positions after just about half a lap of racing, not even that, 6 turns of racing effectively. But he still knows he's got to keep his head down, and he knows it will be impossible to catch, at least for Craig, as we do have confirmation of safety car coming in. He can just get his head down and shows the sort of pace that he had in qualifying. But of course wet conditions, and that does shake it up a little bit, as it looks like Steele and Brennan of course will be all over the back of him. Of course it'll be good to see what the McLaren driver can do after a difficult run of races for him, after showing some really good form earlier in the season. And he'll be desperate, I'm sure, to try and get himself back amongst the podium. He's in a good position to do so. Jeffrey as well, 4 DNFs in the last 5, remember, and he's got himself into P4, and of course he's looking pretty racy tonight, and I wouldn't bank on Simon Palmer staying P5. I think he'd be very determined to try and move up a few positions, as Luke Bailey might have to back off just a little bit more. We saw quite a few bodged restarts in F1 League on Monday, so he might want to back off a little bit more, as the safety car's just about to come in as they round up the last couple of corners. It looks like he's about to gun it now as he comes around the final corner. Looks like Steele's going to stick right about with him. The McLaren of Brennan's getting a very feisty restart as well, just looking to the outside line, trying to use all the limits to try and really open up the left-hander for the opening couple of corners as we now come into turn 3. Looks like Luke Bailey's just about going to hold off the Mercedes driver for a little bit. It looks like Craig's picked up another position on the restart. He's moved up into P10. He's squabbling with Gareth. Just try and have a little bit, see what that was about. Mike Ben Gareth just going a little bit wide into turn 1, but the running drivers moved past him already, as looks like Brennan's is getting very close to the back of Steele B in the Mercedes, as Malc now put a move on Sab to move up into P12, so the Red Bull almost following and shadowing Craig's movement through the field. Both of them started well out of position at the back, and now, well, Craig's already in the points, and Malc trying to follow him through, it seems, as the McLaren or Brennan's getting very close to the back of that Mercedes, and I'm sure in these conditions he'd be revelling in the fact that he could be making up more positions, as Luke Bailey almost picking up 9/10 of a second lead. He'll be trying to open up a second, try and open it more. So Spud picks up 3 second time penalty for corner cutting. Tinnis has moved down into P19. Of course, Synchronuzzi and the 2 Ferraris were trying to make up for their earlier pit stops with damage. And F1 Richard has moved up a position to P14, and I'm sure we're trying to see Treasure as well also try and pick his way through the field.
Oh, I was just right on board with Craig, and into that hairpin there, I think he might have slipped the car into neutral and just understeered off nearly into the wall, which would have been absolutely disastrous. It did allow Gareth to slip back past him, but fortunately he kept it out of the wall, I believe, and damage free. So yeah, he got away with that one. That was nearly a catastrophic mistake.
Does move him outside the points now, as Luke Bailey got a 1.3 second lead. He is really loving his conditions right now, and still equally in his own right, 1.6 second lead over the McLaren of Brennan. So Brennan's maybe just struggling towards the second half and end of that lap to try and keep with the Mercedes, as Jeffrey also a second back as Simon Palmer just looking to the inside, maybe even calling his intermediates down to try and open up, just getting in the mirrors of that racing point. You can see the McLaren and the Mercedes maybe just driving away a bit. It's not usual for him to be out-qualified by his teammate. Luke Bailey, of course, has been far more consistent in the races, but Simon Palmer has perhaps even had the edge on his teammate in terms of qualifying this season, and qualifying P4, losing that position just before the safety car. As looks like got a little bit of squabbling. We've got a Mercedes there of JSP and Nitrogas look like going side by side, as looks like it's just going to get out of it, as Dracio as well getting involved. See what those two are going to try and do, as Dracio almost losing it, well held by the end, but it's going to open the door for JSP on the Mercedes. He's going to try and send it down the inside. He's going to just about think better of it, but Gareth, opportunistic around the outside, has pulled a super move on the Mercedes, and JSP, after looking like he was going to gain a position or two, has now dropped one.
Yeah, JSP was just caught in two minds whether to go for the move or not, and he decided to back out for it. And fantastic driving by Gareth. He just stormed around the outside, said, if you're going to wait, I'm not going to. I've got a race to get on with, and just went, right, I'm going. And he's taken the position and moved himself up into P9. Great move by Gareth.
Gareth's looking pretty handy in these wet conditions so far. Of course, Wojtek as well, looking really on the back of Simon Palmer. And a little bit of an impatient queue of cars behind the racing point of Jeffrey right now. Simon Palmer looking like he's trying to get past, and Wojtek certainly looking like it has the pace to try and get past at least one, if not the pair of them. See Nitrogas and Dracio looking like they're trying to make it happen as well. It looks like Dracio's looking pretty good, and I'm sure he'll be happy to try and get back past the Red Bull of Nitrogas. And but I'm sure the Red Bull driver will be looking eyes forward onto the back of the Haas if he can. And but of course Craig knows there's another new fast lap of the race by Luke Bailey, so if anyone can try and match his time. But Spa picked up another 3 seconds. I think that's his second time penalty in just 7 laps, and bearing in mind, I think 3 of them have been behind safety cars, so it's really not been a great evening so far by the Ferrari drivers. It's like Simon Palmer has put a move on the racing point of Jeffrey into turns 1, 2 and 3, so he has got past that racing point. Jeffrey looks like he's struggling just a little bit. Simon Palmer looking pretty handy in these conditions, of course fresh off his race win in Canada, but is the racing point going to come back at him? It's going to be dependent on how much downforce the Alfa Romeo driver has compared to the racing point driver. But looks pretty handy in the straight line, and it's like of course no DRS in these wet conditions, so it's going to be even harder for these guys to overtake around the street circuit. But Simon Palmer is back up into P4, and of course he'll be knowing Simon Palmer, he'll be going all out for a podium tonight.
Yeah, we'll definitely be wanting to get on that podium to help the Alphas out in that constructors battle as well. They've got a massive chance here because of the performance of the Renaults so far. They've got a massive chance to really push that lead and extend it. Just riding on board with Sab, he's dropped back off the back of Malc a little bit now, but he was just settling into a nice little rhythm. Considering this is his first race in F3 on his wheel, he's somewhat thrown himself into the deep end, because this is one of the hardest circuits to keep concentrated for, well, over an hour really. This race can take when it's been wet. So yeah, he's not doing too bad. He's just settled into a bit of a rhythm. He's just finding his feet a bit, and he's not dropping too far off the back of Malc. So going along nicely as the second racing point.
It's not going too well for the second Haas though, as it's like Tennis has come in for a pit stop at the back, and you see it's just 41 seconds off the Forest Spud now, so it's been a real painful night as Craig gets so close to that wall as he come underneath the grandstand. I'm sure he'll be a little bit impatient. He'll just been noticing the Mercedes just getting a little bit further away from that Williams than he would have liked, and of course he'll be getting on his screen the purple lap times of Luke Bailey in the lead. But Luke Bailey only 1.4 seconds ahead of still, so it looks like maybe still just keeping it clean, not making any mistakes, and he's just about keeping the Alfa Romeo driver honest. As Drazier looking at the sister car Red Bull rear wing for at least another lap, and of course it's so difficult to overtake in these conditions. Of course we had wet weather come Monday, and it's just a train. It's just so hard to get down, to get the power down. Of course these guys are going to be really struggling. It's like Craig's maybe making a really
good run on JSP. Just set him up perfectly for the switchback out onto the well, I say the main DRS straight. We haven't got DRS, but onto that straight, just set him up perfectly and just swept on through the inside and moved himself up into the points now into P10. So it's another car cleared for Craig, and he just needs to keep on doing what he's doing at the moment, keeping it clean and picking cars off when he can.
And Sab and F1 which are keeping themselves in close competition. Oh, we've got a yellow flag somewhere. It might be nitrogas in the wall.
Yeah, unfortunately, looks like he's just gone straight on. Didn't quite catch what happened, but it's more than likely he's just gone straight on there and has found himself in the wall, and it's looking like he hasn't got a front wing either. So that really is not great news for Nitrogas. He's going to really need another safety car now, unless he does gamble now and goes onto the slick tyres. As I've noticed, I'm sure it stopped raining.
I think that's a very good point.
Richard's gone into the wall as well. Oh, and what?
Oh, traffic jam.
Spud. Yeah, we've got a bit of a traffic jam. They've all hit the wall. It was caused by Richard. Richard went into the wall, and then two cars followed him in behind it. It's not the best line to take, to be honest. You want to avoid
Luke's
the
in
wall,
pits.
But yeah, it's Luke's in the pits for, I'm assuming, slicks, because it stopped raining, and as I said earlier, it dries up really quick around here. So this race is in a bit of a crazy phase at the moment, because everyone's going to be gambling on what to do with strategy.
Just like so far, we've only got 3 cars into the pits, but Luke Bailey goes on to a set of hard tyres, so he's no confusion in his mind. He wants to go all the way to the end. Looking at the track as he comes out of the pit lane, does look almost bone dry already. I'm sure it'll be very greasy for these guys. There's Benons and Simon Palmer also coming into the pit lane, so Simon's going to have to double stack, so he's going to lose a little bit of time to his rivals in this race. As he also picked up Tennis, also was the first man on softs. It's still a virtual safety car, so it's going to be a cheap stop for these guys. And Luke Bailey has come out ahead on Cryptox into P10 as Craig is promoted, but is now putting a move on Gareth as they come into turn 7. The left-hander perhaps just caught him napping a little bit under the virtual safety car, and he's picked up another position, of course, into P5. But I'm sure he'll be wanting to come in for slicks at the end of this race, or the end of this lap, I should say. Although I was just noticed actually Luke Bailey has actually fallen behind Cryptox, so 1.2 seconds in fact. So it looks like so we've got a Haas in the wall somewhere. I think that might be Tennis retiring from the race there. So maybe it is a little bit too early for these guys. As Luke Bailey's lost the position, he's now 2.3 behind, 2.6 behind. I think Still might have even played a blinder here by staying out, because he will get a cheap pit stop by pitting under VSC, but it might be just a lap too early, because he's looking like he's losing time. Of course, the hards take so long to fire up as well. See what Synchronusly and Spud and F1 Richard can do on the medians, but he's struggling right now.
Safety car as well, so Still, safety car has just come out, so Still could be quids in here and take this lead. And a few other cars could jump Luke Bailey. This is really hurt Luke Bailey's chances at keeping that lead as well. Sorry.
Just noticing on Steele's cars, it comes under the grandstand. He is missing practically half his front wing on that left-hand side. He's going to have to change it. It's going to give him a real slow stop. It's about 4 seconds clear of Jeffrey, that's now got a drive-through penalty for speeding under safety car, which is going to absolutely ruin his race. You cannot serve that drive-through penalty under safety car. You're going to have to wait till the safety car comes back in, which is doubly disappointing. He then gets 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane, and he's minus the front wing.
What is going on? It just seems that the rain has gone and everyone's heads have gone with it. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. bit crazy, to be honest. I don't know where. Everyone's filtering out in different positions now, so see where Luke comes back out. Luke has regained the lead, crucially for him, because of Steele's mishap with his front wing. Otherwise, I think Steele would have actually found himself in the lead.
There's Simon Palmer now coming through. He's going to go up into third position as Brennon's also follows suit into P2, and Wojtek has jumped still. Of course, I think having to change that front wing. In fact, has the Mercedes changed that front wing? Just going to check. Yes, he has. So slower pit stop there meant the Haas driver was able to get the jump. And of course, the second safety car went on lap 10. And it's gone from the light rain of the intermediates when we're already on slick. So it's but it's going to bring this this race to life. It looks like we've got about half the field on hard tyres, half of it on mediums. The guys, excuse me, on the top three on the hard tyres. You would think they'd be good to go to the end. You'd probably think Wojtek, Drejo and Jeffrey, who are P4, 6 and 7, they're on the medium tyres, they're going to be absolutely flying come the safety car restart as Nitrogas then gets a 5-second cross the pit lane exit, which is never a good thing to do. So he's had a very unfortunate amount of laps, but these guys are on mediums. They're probably going to have to pit again, so they're going to have to try and fight their way ahead of these guys who are on hards.
Yeah, the medium, I'm not sure it will go to the end, to be honest. If the safety car stays out for until maybe lap 14, 15, then maybe it'll go to the end, but I can't see it staying out that long. So the guys on the hards are looking in the better position in the long term in this race, but immediately these guys on the medium should be a bit quicker, so they could be giving the guys on the hards a bit of a hard time, which will be interesting to see. I'm just wondering whether some drivers who are a bit more careful on their tyres could eat these mediums out to the end if they are smooth. I'm not sure.
I think you can do probably about 15, 16 laps on a brand new set of mediums if you was very, very cautious. But I mean, again, as we talk again, it's just overheating his tyres could be so easily done. I think the moment you do overheat them, you could I think very quickly be quite overwhelmed. So the fact you're going to have to do, I mean, it runs a safety car for probably at least another lap. Realistically, these guys are going to have to do probably about 19, 20 racing laps at least, unless there's another safety car. So I can't see them doing it. It'll be interesting if they do try it, but it's going to be a real tough one for them. As Steele is the next hard one in P5, and Gareth also, and going onto the hard tyres, he's in P8. Malc in P9 on a set of mediums. He's had a really nice race so far, kept it clean, and Craig got himself up into the points so far. We've still got about 20 laps to go, so he's got plenty of time to pick up more positions and more points, of course. But I would have believed that he would have served his 5-second penalty in the pit stop, I believe. So at least he's got that off his shoulders. And Sab sitting pretty nicely in 13th, and of course I think he's having a pretty clean race there, the Racing Point driver, on his F3 debut this season. And of course it doesn't at least mean Nitrogas, after a bit of a horrific few laps for him, after running so well at the start of this race, does get himself back in the action in P16. I think he has got a couple of penalties he might have to serve later on in this race. Synchronously, looks like he's going to just about catch up to the back of this pack, which usually means the safety car will be triggered to come in this lap when everyone's formed an orderly queue. And of course Luke Bailey, I'm sure, will be looking to try and get reassert his lead, and of course I'm sure he'll be a little bit pleased to see the Mercedes of Steele down in P5, because Steele wasn't letting him have it his own way. So he's seeing fastest lap after fastest lap by Luke, but he wouldn't quite drop the Mercedes just too easily.
Yeah, Steele was showing quite good pace, and Steele's out there on those hards as well, so he'll definitely be going to the end, providing there's not another splash of weather or a safety car. Safety car is in this lap. Is that barrier sticking out at that corner? I think the barrier might. That could be a bit difficult if it is, but yeah. So Spard and Richard were able to pit for new noses and catch back up to the back of the pack because of that as well, after being caught up in that earlier incident with the dreadful barrier.
So then, for the second time this evening, Luke Bailey is going to be handling a safety car restart, going to try and get all the maximum tyre pressure, tyre temperatures he can get into his hard tyres. Of course, it can be quite difficult to fire up sometimes, as Nitrogas gets a 5-second penalty for collision with Synchronously on the safety car. Not sure why, sure he's got a penalty when he's ahead of Synchronously, but
Synchronously's got wing damage. because of that. So that's unfortunate. But we are back underway. Luke Bailey has bolted and he's heading the cars down to turn 1.
So still going side by side with the Haas of Wojtek, maybe just catching the Haas driver napping. He's on the medium tyres, but still's got his hards fired right up and he's centred down the inside of turn 1. A fantastic move by the Mercedes driver. Wojtek's just got such better traction coming out of that sequence of corners that are heading to turn 5. Of course, no DOS just yet, but Wojtek is struggling to try and get back past him. Simon Palmer's looking very close as well to the back of Brennan's, and Brennan's keeping it very tight as well with the Alfa Romeo of Luke Bailey. But fabulous restart there from Still B. He's going back into P4 and still in the hunt for this race win. Of course, we know he's probably expecting quite a few penalties from a lot of drivers because of the track limits are so harsh around here. One on board with Gareth, he's kind of sat in P8, and of course he can have a real job in his hands to keep up the cars in front of him, all 3 of them on the medium tyres, and the car behind him, the Red Bull of Malc, looking so racy tonight on those medium tyres, and even wanting to make the absolute most of them. Simon Palmer's, was Jeffrey looks like he spun it.
Yeah, Jeffrey's just lost it on his own and in the wall, and assuming wing damage, so that's his race over unless there is yet another safety car. But yeah, unfortunate for Jeffrey, but you can't afford to make these mistakes at this circuit. Simon Palmer's just gone into the wall. At that barrier, he's just gone into the wall and lost his wheel, and we've got another safety car, and yet again Simon, with fairly strong qualifying pace, just makes mistakes in the races.
You gotta feel so sorry for the Alfa Romeo driver there. I'm not sure if you saw it. Was it a case of the safety car, the barrier sticking out, or did he just go too hot on the brakes? Or?
I think the barrier is sticking out, but equally it's very avoidable there. It's a wide corner, it's a wide exit, so it is avoidable. I think he's just pushing really hard to try and get past the McLaren of Brennan's and has found himself in the wall. So you know, it's his mistake. It's unfortunate, but it is his mistake at the end of the day. So yeah, it's not like the other barrier we have at this track that's a bit dodgy at turn 8 where it's a tight exit and you can't really avoid it. It's a wide exit down there at the end of sector 2, so I think he could have avoided it, but he hasn't, and we've got another safety car. So yeah, everyone who's picked up damage again can regroup and rethink.
You've got to feel sorry for Luke Bailey. He cannot get a proper grasp on this race because every time he seems to want to try and stretch his legs, there seems to be another safety car. 3 safety cars in 13 laps. He still leads Grand Prix. Maybe the only man who hasn't made a mistake just yet. Brennan's will be very happy that the Alfa Romeo is out of his mirrors. He now sits in a comfortable P2. But of course, Stills looks really racy tonight, and of course, he sat in P3 and had some really strong pace. Wojtek and Giorgio on the medium tyres, and of course, this safety car will help these medium tyre runners. And just if they are going to go all the way to the end of them, we'll just give them that little bit of longevity in their medium tyres to try and go to the end. Still going to be a real stretch for them. And it was not optimal at all for Wojtek to lose that position on the previous safety car restart to the Mercedes of Still B, as Malc sat there in P7, as Gareth's got himself up into P6, and of course that incident now means Craig is up into P8. So not only has that incident, rather unfortunately for Simon Palmer, lost him the chance of a podium tonight, it has also gained a position or 2 for Craig, and Cryptox as well got himself back up into P9. Sab just outside the points in P11, so he's having a fine race. Nitrogas has recovered to P12. I think Sir Spud got a penalty for speeding in the pit lane, so he's now P14. Synchronously has had multiple trips to the pit stops, as Jeffrey, at least after that spin, will mean he'll be able to catch back up with this pack. So a little bit of a blessing in disguise for him. I'm sure won't be happy anyway with himself for just that mistake. Of course, he's had such a bad run of form lately. Of course, we know on his day he's one of the quickest drivers on the grid, maybe even the quickest, depending on the circuit, but hasn't gone right for him, particularly the second half of the season. And but I mean, what can you say for Luke Bailey? I mean, he's got pole position. He's the only man into the 35s in qualifying. He's led effectively every single lap of this Grand Prix, but he can't seem to manage or stretch his legs for more than 3 laps because there seems to be a safety car.
Yeah, it must be incredibly frustrating for him, and I'm sure he's a bit it's probably unfortunately frustrated with his teammate as well for causing this one, but it's happened. He's just got to get on with it. And to be honest, each lap the safety car stays out is actually playing into the hands of these guys on the mediums, because they are then able just to prolong the life of their tyre a little bit more, and it's making it giving them an increased chance of that tyre then going to the end of the race. So it could spice this race up even more, to be honest, this safety car.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting what these medium runners can do, and of course Wojtek and Treasure, we know how quick they are. Wojtek's been really amongst the conversation for podium so many times this season. He hasn't had perhaps the results his pace has really shown, and we know how quick Treasure has been, particularly in the last few races. Of course, he took that dominant win in Monza just a few weeks ago, so I'm sure he'll be very keen to try and move up a couple of places. Just looking back in the chat, of course, Stephen, who we lost on the first lap, we didn't quite see what happened. We did sort of grasp about what it was. He did get caught up, sadly, I think, in that incident of the Terroso of Cryptox. So very unfortunate night for him in the night of Singapore. It's only on lap 14, of course, safety car. We'll have to see, as it looks like Jeffrey has caught up to the back of this pack. Of course, it's usually just a lap or two, so just corner or two, where I get that notification saying the safety car is in, if it will come into on this lap. Of course, Luke Bailey certainly be hoping it does, because he don't want to give any advantage at all to these hards, to these medium runners. Of course, he's got a little bit of a buffer. Of course, the two cars behind him are on hards, so the safety car does come in this lap. So this lap will be a little bit of good news for the Alfa Romeo drivers. He backs completely off. Brennon's getting very close to the back of him there. And of course, these guys in hards can be critical for them to keep temperature in their tyres. Something Steele did particularly well to really get such a good restart and go send it down the inside of Wojtek, despite being on the harder compounded tyres, to make a move. But who have you got your eye on, Charlie, for the safety car restart? Because Gareth, Malc, Craig, they're all doing really, really well. They could pick up even more places.
I think, again, as we can only go off what happened at the last restart, I've got my eye on Steele, because he was super aggressive, and I'm sure he'll be equally as aggressive behind that McLaren of Brennon's. So here we go.
Just try and get extra temperature as the safety car is peeling in, and Luke Bailey and Brennan seem to have a collision somehow. I was riding forward with Luke Bailey, didn't suspect a thing, but he's picked up a 5-second penalty regardless. Not sure what that's about. The Mercedes are still once again looking like it's got a good restart. Can have a little look to the inside of the McLaren. I can't for the life of me work out what that penalty was for. I can only assume Brennan's just tapping the back of that Alfa Romeo. I can't see any front wing damage on the McLaren drivers. Just like Cryptox has made a move on JSP on his tyres, got a yellow flag. Just like Jeffrey's gone in the wall on the exit of turn 2 in that first sector. I hope it's looks like it's just about rejoining, and well, not rejoining the race clearly as he now leaves the session. I think it's been a real tough night for the Racing Point driver, as it looks like Drazier is going to go into combat with the Haas. He just thinks better of it. It looks like a real Gareth's going to try and send it down the inside. Drazier shuts the door on that one. He's got to be careful, because Malc's on those medium tyres behind him, and he's sat in P7. He's got real good points up for grabs here, and looks like Malc might even fancy a move. Looks like Gareth's got a good enough exit to keep him ahead as they come into turn 10. And of course, coming around here now, going just about over the bridge, and of course into the hairpin of turn 13, which could be a good overtaking spot for these guys, particularly from the medium tyres with that little bit of better traction. But still, once again, looks like Luke Bailey stretched his legs to a 1-second gap, only on lap 15, so not even at half race distance yet. But still keeping the McLaren of Brennan's right on his toes. Wojtek and Drazier are going to be all over the back of that Mercedes as well on those medium tyres. But it's been a nice restart from Luke Bailey. He's caught a 1.4-second gap in, just about half a lap.
Yeah, that's exactly what Luke wanted to do, and hopefully there won't be another safety car to disrupt his flow, because he needs to now extend that gap by 5 seconds. So yeah, I was just riding on board with, I believe I was riding on board with Steele actually. I could see the two cars in front just before that restart, and I think Luke Bailey was just warming up his tyres before he was about to bolt, and just sort of like, you know, made slight contact with Brennan's, and the game just decided that was worthy of a 5-second penalty, which I don't quite understand. But yeah, so he's going to have to, you know, drop that time now to Brennan's, otherwise he'll find himself dropping behind him as they come over the line, which will be a bit unjust, if you ask me. So yeah, he's got a bit of work to do.
As Sespar picks up another 3 seconds for time for track extensions, multiple warnings I think there, so I think that might even be 9 seconds for him. So it's been a real tough race for the Ferrari driver so far, as Sab's in P11 and all over the back of the Mercedes or GSP. Sab's on those medium tyres, so everyone wanted to try and get back past the hard runner in front of him and into the points would be a fabulous return for him. And still looking very nice. He's got even almost a second gap to Wojtek behind. Of course, DOS will be enabled at the end of this lap, I believe. So we'll help the Mercedes driver try and get past the McLaren driver on the next lap. If we can get close enough and get a good run at the first complex of corners. Of course, down that back straight, But looks like it's been a good start. So this he's doing good start for Gareth under the safety car restart. He's keeping with the medium runners ahead of him, and he knows he's just going to try and keep with them. Their medium tyres will go off towards the end of this race. They might even have to dive into the pits if they cannot go to the end. And of course, when you're surrounded by medium tyres, Charlie, and of course when it's such a difficult race to overtake, I suppose his strategy right now is just to try and stick with him.
Yeah, he's just going to have to stick with him and wait for the DRS to come online. As I'm just riding on board with Craig and Malc and Gareth in that little fight, and Craig and Malc up 12 positions, and Gareth equally up 6. So all three of those are having really good races. Drazier up 4 in front of them, and Sab down in P11 is up 4 as well. So there's a few guys out here who've had really good clean races so far, and they're really reaping the benefits of just keeping it clean, which is really just key on a circuit like this.
It's Drazier almost pushing the Haas around the corner of turn 7 there as they come into this second sector. Of course, just opening up, getting so close to the wall, in fact even hitting it, and he's looked like he's lost an end plate off that front right of his front wing, so that can be so cost efficient in terms of lap time. I think he's missing both sides of his front wing in terms of end plates, and I wonder if Gareth might have just seen that, because he knows full well now just how much time that Drazier is going to be lacking. In fact, yeah, he's missing an end plate on the left and front right of that front wing, so he's going to be losing a whole heap of time. He's going to be hoping he could try and stick in the DRS zone of the Haas in front of him to try and defend now, because he's going to be losing a massive amount of downforce. Got a yellow flag. It looks like Malc's retired.
Oh no, Malc has become victim of that wall, the safety car, so just prolonging this race even more. Yeah, it's a shame Jeffrey left the session, because he would have been able to make his way back up to the back of the field, which I believe his AI car will do, but that's going to be right in everyone's way. Yeah, unfortunately Malc has just been caught out, gone a bit wide there and hit that wall, so I do think it is a wall that people, like I said before, that people can be avoiding, because it's such a wide exit, but time and time again they're hitting it, so there must be some sort of problem there, as we're seeing a few cars dive into the pits now. Yeah,
I think Drazier is coming in for a change of front wing. Sadly for Cryptox, probably not aware his teammate's coming into the pits, because he's coming to the pits as well, wondering if he's deciding though if he's got damage himself, or if he just doesn't think those medium tyres are going to go to the end of the race. Of course, saying again, poor Luke Bailey. Of course, if there is any unjust doing, of course, with the 5-second penalty, I'm sure the stewards will look into it and try and get to it removed. It looks like the McLaren there, F1 Richard, also into the pits for a brand new set of medium tyres. So Spud also into the pit lane. He's gone on to a new set of softs as well, so he's going to struggle to get them to the end, as Cryptox pits on a new set of medium tyres to go to the ends. So these guys just outside the top 10 there on the brand new set of tyres, so they'll be looking pretty good to try and get themselves back ahead. But of course, it is difficult to try and get through the traffic around here. Of course, it's such a difficult track to overtake, and a real unfortunate result there for Malc, who of course was doing so well, had such a super start. I think, as you were saying, up so many positions, really following Craig through the pack, and I think was actually ahead of Craig, in fact, by the time of the incident. So it's a real shame that it's come to an end for him. Of course, with that safety car the barrier sticking out, I'm sure I'll be feeling a little bit unjust there. As Sab now up into P8, so just as you're saying, keeping out of trouble, keeping it clean. We're saying that for his first race on the wheel, it's such a difficult track, but we're saying how much he's improved and just how consistent he is really being, considering his lack of preparation. Just keeping it clean, keeping a cool head, he could be on for a points haul tonight.
Yeah, that would be great to see, to be honest. Just really someone keeping it clean, even though they haven't quite got the pace of others, and picking up a nice result. So it would be good to see we like to see drivers just having clean races. It doesn't particularly matter whether they're electrifyingly quick. Ultimately we want to see clean and good racecraft. So yeah, he's having a good race, and I'm sure he'll only move forward if other people make mistakes, but the top 8, top 9, top 10 looking pretty good now. So yeah, can't wait to get back underway after this third or fourth restart, whatever it is now.
And yeah, sat in a really good position, and I'm sure he'll be trying to keep a little bit of an eye on his rear mirror as well, because he knows that there's quite a few cars, just a few cars behind him on a brand new set of tyres as well. So but Luke Bailey, I'm sure, frustrated as ever at what, our 4th safety car now in 19 laps. Let's hope we don't get another one, because of course he needs to extend a 5-second gap after a collision with Brennan's under safety car. Of course, as we're saying, if there's any unjust doing, I'm sure the stewards will look at it after the Grand Prix and try and have an idea of what happened. But Craig sat in P6, so it's going really nicely for the Renault driver. Again, it looks similar to Sab. You know, hasn't been overtaking cars left, right and centre, but just kept it clean, just kept it, you know, on the track through the tough conditions, through all the safety cars. He's now finding himself in 6th place on those hard tyres. He's got Wojtek, a couple of cars ahead of him on the mediums, who probably will struggle to go to the end. Of course, these safety cars are going to be helping him massively to go to the end. But, I mean, a 6th place right now from the back of the grid, I'm sure he'll take.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was looking all doom and gloom after we finished that quality session, and he was disqualified and down to the back. So I'm sure he'd be quite happy in P6. It's not actually, you know, a couple more places. If he can gain a couple more, he'd be back pretty much where he was looking to qualify anyway. So yeah, I'm sure he'd be delighted with how he's recovered this drive so far.
And Luke Bailey, of course, on 10 lap old hards, but of course I think most of those laps have not been in any sort of aggression or anger as normal. A lot of them been under safety car, and still got about 13 laps to go, and they'd be hoping that a lot of them, or at least 12 of them, will be under full green flag conditions, trying to eke out a gap over the cars behind him. And of course he'd be hoping that Craig can even step a position or two further down the order, because there's a real chance for him tonight to really gain some championship points. Of course, it is possible for Craig to win the championship tonight, as we're saying. He needs a DNF from Luke, or a 9 points finish from the Alfa Romeo driver, and Craig would need to win the race and get fastest lap. So it doesn't seem like it's all too likely right now, but I wouldn't write anything off in this race just yet, after the amount of controversy and collisions and whatnot we've had so far in the 19 laps. But we're going to have another lap of safety car at least, which I'm sure Luke Bailey will not be too pleased about. But nevertheless, as we're going to just about start lap 20, I think the safety car has led most of them, as Bernard's getting very close, as in fact even passing Luke Bailey on safety car there, as he quickly lets the Alfa Romeo driver back through. And of course we've got 15 runners left. Of course Jeffrey has left the session, so 14 drivers left in the session, and real contrast to strategy. So Spud's on those soft tyres, so he's going to probably struggle to go to the end. So he'll probably be trying to eke it out, probably hoping the safety car stays out a few more laps. It might give him a little bit of a better chance. But I would have thought Wojtek now, I mean, his medium tyres really couldn't have been too bad because of the amount of laps we've had under the safety car. I would have thought his tyres would probably isn't now in a good position where he could probably just about go to the end on those.
Yeah, I think we've had probably, I don't know, 6-7 laps under safety car since they actually went on to them. I think we've probably only had around 3 laps of full race pace, have we not? So yeah, I mean, I don't see why he shouldn't be able to go to the end on those now, if he's kept them in check under the safety car, not overheated them and weared them too much, so worn them too much even. So yeah, he's looking in a pretty strong position, and just hope he can go to the end on them.
Absolutely, and of course just coming over the bridge now, coming into of course the turn 13 hairpin under safety car conditions, and I'm sure the safety car coming in at the end of this lap, as we just have should have about 11 laps of racing, hopefully all under green flag, because I could be wrong, but I think I'm seeing rain on the screen, Charlie, which could be another mix. If it is rain that I'm seeing, we could see these guys go back onto Inters before the end of this race.
Yeah, it is. That is starting to come down steadily, and I think equally, as this track gets dry quickly, it also gets wet quickly, and it will get wet quickly if this rain carries on coming. So it's just throwing another spanner in the works, isn't it? It's just non-stop problem solving for Luke Bailey out front. He just wants to get going and have a clean race, and then something else happens. It's just surely he must be nearly ready just to throw the towel in. He must be getting so annoyed under that helmet.
I think the game is doing everything possible to make him not win tonight. Maybe it's in the favour of Craig's championship, who knows, but it looks like Luke Bailey's going to drop the gun early and try and come around this last corner. We're a little bit greasy out there already. You can see the rain on the camera in a couple of shots in that last sector, so the rain's really coming down quite carefully, and looks like got a few positions being made up already. So Nitrogas is coming into an early pit stop. To see if it was good enough, got a few cars into the pits. Nitrogas, Spud, and the AR car of Jeffrey all coming to the pits. I wonder if they're going to go on intermediate tyres. So Spud doesn't in fact go onto medium tyres, so that says a lot. Got a yellow flag. It was that Sab, I think, might have spun it on the exit of turn 4. He's facing the wrong way. It is in fact the Racing Point driver who's dropped down, so a real shame for him, of course, under such damp conditions. But we see Gareth going wheel to wheel with Wojtek and the Haas driver. Of course, he's on this medium tyre, so in these conditions he should be a lot better. Gareth gets so close to the back of the Haas, might have even just tapped the rear of it. Be very careful to not do that. Of course, he lost.
Steele's in the wall. Steele is in the wall, and unfortunately for Steele, that'll be probably his front wing on. As he's dived down the inside of his teammate JSP, that was dangerous. And he's now lost 2 positions. That was, oh no, Steele is all over the circuit. This circuit is getting very greasy very quickly, and these drivers just got to keep their heads now until they get back to the pits. Because we've got a McLaren off at Richard going wide. It's all happening again here. Just don't know where to look at the moment.
There's now still losing another position to Crypto because he's got no grip out there. I don't think any of these guys do. I think this might be an inspired decision by Nitrogas to pit for intermediates on that tyre. Likewise for Sir Spud as Cryptox then spins out of the hairpin to turn 13. There might have been a little bit of contact as Sab gets a 10-second penalty for corner cutting. I don't know what corner he's cut to get 10 seconds worth there. But these guys are really, really struggling. Gareth's putting a lot of pressure on his hats. The rain is absolutely flying down. I mean, Nitrogas is probably flying. So Spud as well is probably flying. These guys might have just made an incredible decision. We see Luke Bailey and Brennan's are far. Wojtek's really struggling. Gareth almost pushing him around this last sector. You think the mediums would be a lot better in these damp conditions, but the Haas driver certainly doesn't seem to think so. He's really struggling. I expect to see all of them coming into the pits on this lap. As looks like we'll see the intermediate runners of I think Steele's having another problem coming underneath the grandstand. He's got a whole queue of cars with 2 racing points, and McLaren is still he's got damaged front wing. It's gone even more. Sab hasn't got a front wing at all. The Ferrari of Sir Spud is absolutely desperate to get past the Mercedes. He knows he's got a chance to pick up a whole heap of positions, as too does Nitrogas. Looks like Sab's going to have to come in for a new front wing. And where's the Ferrari driver going to rejoin? Looks like, as I think Wojtek, of course, Luke Bailey's going to have to serve that 5-second penalty in his box. I think so. Wojtek's going to jump to him. So Spud's going to come round and take the lead. Nitrogas is going to come round in second, despite these guys being last and second to last under safety car. Wojtek's jumped ahead of Luke Bailey, who of course has been dominating this race, but every time he's had to stretch his legs, there's been a safety car. I've got a McLaren of Brennan's with no wheels on his car flying around on apparently intermediate tyres in P6, Craig's in P7.
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
This is going to be this is an absolute bonkers race. I've not quite seen a Singapore's supposed to be boring. I don't know what's going on here, Charlie.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to look at Brennan's too much because his car is somewhat alien-like, to be honest. I think there's a UFO on the circuit, so he hasn't got any wheels. That's obviously his strategy to try and win this race. But yeah, so Spud and Nitro, fantastic play on the strategy by them, and they found themselves in P1 and P2, and Jeffrey's AI in P3 blocking everyone.
Yeah, a bit suspect there. Of course, Jeffrey is not in the session. I think he's probably hoping that he stayed in the session if he realised he was in P3. Maybe if he's watching on stream, he'll try and hop back in the game and try and claim a podium. But a bit suspect, as you see the McLaren in the background there. No wheels on his wagon. There's Luke Bailey probably fuming that he's down into P5. Of course, he was saying, got pole position, absolutely dominated qualifying. He's going to have to try and get past Wojtek to get himself back up into P4 though. So Spud's in the lead by Nitrogas is riding the track limits all the way through there in that final sector as going to come underneath the grandstand. Of course, underneath the grandstand will always be bone dry. Of course, you're under shelter there, so you suddenly get a lot of turning for that right-hander in these wet conditions. And looks like Gareth, I don't remember seeing any penalty for Captain Stiff there, the Williams, but he's dropped a couple positions. I'm wondering if he might have just got held up in that Williams pit box by other cars coming down the pit lane. I'm sure only he knows. But so Spud leads by a 1.1 second gap as Luke Bailey just looking to have a little bit of a look at the inside of Wojtek, perhaps not quite favouring these conditions as much, but an inspired call by the Spud and Nitrogas. An incredible call, fair play to them. They had not anything to lose by making it, but they made a fabulous decision, and they now find themselves first and second after a manic lap. Everyone's sprinting into the pits for a set of intermediate tyres. They of course made the ideal lap to come in, as Captain Stiff's looking like he's right on the back of the Mercedes of JSP, who's had a really fine race, Gareth. He deserves far more than P9, but he's still got a little bit of time to try and get himself back up into the positions that he feels he deserves. As we've got Brennan's in P6, who's looking really good for a podium tonight. I'm sure he'd be wondering, just like Sab picks up 3 seconds, just like Luke Bailey, he's wondering how he's suddenly lost all these positions. He's suddenly now got 5 cars ahead of him. Craig's in P7. I'm sure he'd be delighted when he peers around the corner to see the Alfa Romeo of Luke Bailey. So Spud stretched it to a 1.5 second gap. But I mean, as long as more Wojtek can keep Luke Bailey behind, we could generally see. So Spud, I think he's got quite a lot of penalties, but Nitrogas, I think, has kept it relatively clean. I think he's had a few penalties, but I think he might have already served them. We could see one of these two guys, despite being wide at the back, could generally win this race.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible to be honest. We've got another yellow flag. Brennan's with his lack of wheels that he already have, I think maybe nearly lost some other part of his car. He's lost some of the front wing, so yeah, Brennan's found himself in that wall that a lot of drivers seem to be heading into, and it's completely ruined his race as well. So I don't think we're going to have a safety car, but he is going to lose out massively from this.
And I think might have been Steele there, I think, making the one of a mistake in that middle sector somewhere, because I think Sabs moves up a position, excuse me, into P13, as looks like Luke Bailey's dropped back from the Haas of Wojtek. So I wonder if he's made a mistake in there somewhere, as we're going right on board of Craig, who unbelievably, Luke Bailey starting on pole position, championship leader Craig starting P20, are now just nose and tail on the circuit for P5 and P6 with just about 8 laps to go. So how things have changed and how dramatic this race has been in the night of Singapore. And I'm sure Craig would be absolutely delighted to be P6 on the back of the grid, and be even more delighted to see Luke Bailey's dropped to P5. Of course, he'd be absolutely fuming because he got a 5-second penalty with really nothing he could have done whatsoever. Of course, just a little bit of contact under safety car with Brennan, who again in his own right was looking really good for a podium tonight, but he now finds himself into P15 and into the pit box, probably for a new front wing after colliding with the wall. And I mean, it's anyone's game for points really with these amount of laps to go, as Wojtek looks like he's found a little bit more pace, a little bit more confident, but the rain is really heavily coming down. I wonder if it could even transition to heavy wets before the end of the race, because it's looking like it's beginning to get worse out there.
Yeah, it is getting worse. I'm just looking through the penalties actually at the moment, and I know so Spud has got a couple of 3-second penalties, maybe even a few of them, to be honest. Yeah, so he's actually got 4 of them now, if he has just picked up another one. I don't believe I think Nitro has picked up a couple of 5-second penalties throughout this race, but I do believe he served them in the pits, because I was riding on board with his previous pit stop and he was serving a penalty, so he might have cleared those from his name, and he's going to be finding himself in such a handy position at the moment.
But Nitro Gas just 6/10 of a second behind the Ferrari drivers, but of course no DRS in these conditions, and quite rightfully so. So going to have to get the move done. Simple as the Spud goes a little bit wide, and someone's going to be careful into turn 2. Of course, 5 track limits, penalties, and you're out. It's a disqualification here at Invictus, so he's going to be really careful they don't throw away a whole heap of points tonight, because even with these penalties, he will be getting a real start. He almost loses it coming out there. So it looks like Nitrogas is going to have an easy move for the lead, and the Ferrari is going to drop back. So Spud is struggling in these conditions, as Wojtek is still behind the racing point. Nitrogas finds himself into the lead of this race, and Spud of course now into P2. Wojtek is over the back of the AI Jeffrey for P4 right now, as Luke Bailey, after dropping a couple of seconds behind the Haas, it looks like he's just slowly but surely gaining back on the Haas of Wojtek, and he's bringing along Craig quite nicely with him, as it looks like Gareth is again trying to man an assault on the Mercedes driver for P7, and Drejo in P9 just a further second back, as Synchronicity looks like he's going to pick up the last remaining point at the moment, as Gareth just getting a little bit out of shape there, as they now come across the bridge and into the turn 13 hairpin. Want to try and take a wide line, maybe come back underneath the Mercedes front and try and get as much traction as you possibly can, as Wojtek looks like he might no, thinks better of it. Maybe even aware that it's an AR car, because Jeffrey won't pick up the points for his position tonight. But still 6 laps to go. Plenty of positions still up for grabs, and Nitrogas are doing a really solid job. Built up a 1.4 second gap in just about half a lap in the lead, so he's doing really nicely on these intermediates, because he's doing really well in the early phases of this race when it was in the intermediate conditions. As Gareth almost flicking it in the wall as they come onto the grandstand. He does well to hold it, and he's looking pretty racy. Of course, JSP all over the back of Craig as well. He's dropped about a second behind Luke Bailey, and as they come around to start lap 26, and I mean, it's just points up for anyone at this point. Of course, it's probably, it's the rain again looking so hard out there. These guys are really going to struggle on intermediates. Who knows where I have anyone who fancies being brave on the full wet tyres. But I would have thought with 6 laps to go, Charlie, it's going to be so crucial not to pick up any last minute penalties.
Yeah, I think penalties are going to decide this now, because it is so difficult to overtake without that DRS on this circuit, because it's incredibly difficult to follow. So yeah, even like Wojtek at the moment is struggling to get past the AI car of Jeffrey, so I'm not entirely sure what difficulty that is set to, but it's proven too difficult for Wojtek at the moment, and he's just stuck behind the racing point. And
let's see what it looks like. Again, there's just the deltas there, just fluctuating. It's so hard to overtake on this track normally, especially when you just don't have DRS in these conditions, as the rain continues to pour down here in Singapore. And it looks like Luke Bailey's just struggling a little bit to catch back up with the Haas of Wojtek. I'm sure he's, in his own right, he's probably absolutely livid tonight. He got everything he needed to do in qualifying, and the game just seems to be absolutely throwing everything at him to make sure he didn't win tonight, including a penalty which he probably didn't deserve under safety car. But he's now down to P5. He's going to try and keep a cool head and just try and pick up maximum points he can. He could still be on for a podium, because I don't believe he's picked up any corner cutting penalty, so we'll have to see about that. We've got a yellow flag somewhere in this last sector. This is like Froyce, the Spard has gone into the wall. He's facing the wrong way.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a Nelson Piquet moment. He's facing the wrong way at that section of the track, and he's just rammed it into the wall as well. So that's his front wing completely gone, and that's his race effectively over, unless we have another last minute safety car.
And now Craig picking up 3 second time penalty. It was actually crucial. If it's got 3 cars behind him, all within 3 seconds. I don't believe seeing JSP, Captain Stiff or Drazier picking up 3 seconds for corner cutting, so that could be a real headache for Craig. He's still right behind his championship rival, and of course he knows that ultimately at the end of the day, if Luke Bailey doesn't pick up the points he deserves, as Brennan's picked up 10 seconds for corner cutting. I don't know what corner he's cutting there to get 10 seconds. Of course, we know how strict corner cutting is around this circuit. I'm sure I'll be trying to have sending that one into the studio, so try and have a little look as well. Have a look at Gareth on the Williams. He's been right on the back of that Mercedes. Mercedes can go a little bit defensive. Gareth's going to go late on the brakes in turn 7. He's going to try and go around the outside. Just pinches the Mercedes driver onto the curb, and he pulls off a fantastic move around the outside. He's really looking good in these conditions, the Williams driver, and he's moved up into P6 right now, and you can see Craig and Luke Bailey just ahead of him. He's looking really racy out there. I'm sure Drazier will also be maybe fancying a move on the Mercedes driver before long, and I think if Gareth has kept it clean, he could be on for a good even more positions here, as Nitrogas now 7 seconds in the lead. Wojtek can't get past the racing point of Jeffrey. He's in P3. Luke Bailey just trying to fend off the Renault of Craig at the moment. Looks like he's probably had enough, and of course as the conditions continue to worsen, he's got another yellow flag in this last sector. Still's got a 5 second for speeding in the pit lane. He's just coming into a tyre, so that mean absolutely nothing to him. But got a yellow flag somewhere. It's now a sector 1. I think that might be just Still's car retiring, as looks like Luke Bailey has beginning to catch up with the Haas of Wojtek, and of course look at the gap from just P2 all the way down to P7. All these cars all within a second of each other. One mistake will cost you a whole heap of positions, particularly if you have Wojtek or Luke Bailey at the head of this train. As now it looks like, is the rain stopping? No, it's still there a little bit, so not quite as bad. So it might have just phased out through the worst of this weather conditions. But you've got to feel for Luke Bailey, Charlie. I mean, he could be on for a podium position anyway, but he just hasn't had the luck at all tonight. He
hasn't had any luck, like you say, at all. And as Wojtek picks up 3 seconds, that could that could hand Luke Bailey that final podium position, which I'm sure would be somewhat of a consolation to him, knowing that he did have a pretty it looking like a straightforward win every time he actually got the hammer down under those safety car restarts, looking like a straightforward win. But still 3 laps to go here, and as we saw last night, 3 laps is a very long time around this circuit. As we got Captain Stiff now losing the position to JSP, has he made a mistake? It looks like he might have made a mistake there, because he's dropped 1.7 seconds behind JSP after losing that position. So looking at Gareth, Captain Stiff, has had a bit of a wobble.
Yeah, I wonder if he's just maybe lost the rear coming out of turn 7 or something, because JSP, as you rightly point out, has moved back ahead of him. And of course, he looks like Giorgio as well. It's just dropped off a little bit, so I wonder if he'd made a mistake as well, which is fortunate for Gareth, because it means he doesn't lose another position. Of course, with Craig's 3-second time penalty, if Gareth hasn't got any of his own, it could well be on for position anyway, as we ride aboard with Luke Bailey, who's just watching these two squabbling. The barrier still sticking out a little bit. You've got to be so careful these last few laps. Nitro Gas is now nearly 9 seconds clear of this player, as Wojtek going to look to the inside. As of course, there's now Luke Bailey picks up 3 seconds worth of time penalty. So JSP could be now looking at a really good position, as short Luke Bailey be just a few of himself with just a few laps to go. But of course, when your luck is out, it is certainly out, and it's like it's definitely much out this evening after such a fine display for much of this race. But as I was saying, rightly point out, hasn't had the chance really to stretch his legs. It's all been against him. But Nitro Gas has pulled off. Nitro Gas is now in the pit lane. Has he damaged his... Is he serving a... I don't know what's going on. He's serving a time penalty. He's going on to the soft tyres. Softs.
So has the rain stopped, and he's taken a massive gamble again. It's just unbelievable what I'm seeing here. Guys taking gambles, and I mean, the first gamble paid off for him, but I can't see this one paying off. The track's still really wet. He's just creeping out of the pits at the moment, all the way back down into P10. The track is still, as you can see, shining. It's still soaked. There's no dry line, and he's just creeping about on the track. This is really not paid off for Nitro Gas. Unless this really dries out within these last 2 laps, he's going to find himself in all sorts of bother.
Also going very well. They're just seeing a glimpse of his front wing. He's missing an end plate, the Hash driver, so that's probably why he's struggling so much to get past the racing point. Who knows, we might see Luke Bailey win this race after all. As we're looking at the delta of Nitro Gas, he's losing time hand over fist to the McLaren ahead of him of F1 Richard. It's now up to what's about 12-13 seconds when they left the pit lane. It's up to 15. I think this has been a real poor call, I think, for the Red Bull driver. I think Sir Spuds also into the pit lane for a set of soft tyres, but I think it's just a lap or two too early. And these guys have stayed out on intermediates. I think are in a good position. Luke Bailey's in a good position to try and get past Wojtek with his damaged front wing. But of course, does have that 3-second time penalty. I can't quite remember. It's like Gareth has got back past JSP as Spuds picked up 5 seconds for crossing the white line pit lane exit, which we've seen again as Sab now moves into P10. So it could well get a point. As Gareth is missing an end plate on that front white. It's now of his front wing. Really struggling one of the last couple of corners, as looks like Luke Bailey almost pushing. They're going to go around again on these intermediate tyres, so they definitely feel
Gareth's
it's the right tyres. As Gareth comes into the pits, it's just 2 laps away. It's such a strong call.
It's a bit of a strange one. Maybe he just feels that, I think you just said he had damage. Maybe he feels that damage is too much and he doesn't want to carry on with it. So yeah, that's going to drop him right down and probably, well, possibly out of the points. So it's a massive call these guys are making. It's just, I can't see it paying off. I mean, he's gone onto the softs. He's got 2 laps. This track's going to have to drastically dry out, and these inters are going to have to burn out immediately for this to work.
It's Craig and Luke Bailey going side by side into turn 7. They both have 3-second time worth of times penalties, so you'd think this is for position, and they're currently sat in P3 and P4, and Craig is looking all over the back of that Alfa Romeo driver, who's maybe just struggling a little bit with tyre temps on his intermediates. We know this track is drying out, but realistically I can't see, even if it does dry out, can you surely you can't make a pit stop gap in just 1 lap or 2 in when it dries out. As Gareth is into P11, we'll see if he gains any time on Cryptox ahead of him, who's on intermediate tyres. as nitric gas has now pitted, and you've got to feel so sorry, but he made an absolute incredible call to get himself into the lead, but he's just undone that work with just an early, very premature call as Craig almost goes into the back of his championship rival. Coming into turn 14 there, just gets close enough and gets on the brakes just hard enough as Sab now is into P9, so he might get some points in such a crazy race. Gareth looks to be struggling. He's not quite gaining. They're probably at the crossover point now, where if ideally DRS is now enabled. So you'd think this is probably the perfect lap to pit for soft tyres if you are going to. But with 1 lap to go, you'd think they'd all stay out and just try and take track position and try and limp home to the end. Looks like they all are. Craig just going all over the curbs in that last corner. And they're going to kind of cross the line for the last lap. We see Synchronously in the background as well. He's recovered up into P7, chasing his teammates. Craig almost going, and he does hit that back loop, but he's spun. And Luke's spun as well.
Oh my God! Did Craig hit him? I was riding on board with Luke. I didn't actually see. Craig has hit him and taken his championship rival out, and I'm imagining Craig will probably take a penalty for that if he has done that. Just massive incident at the end, just to finish this race off. It's unbelievable. It's like last night, but it's been like last night all the way through this race. Unfortunately for Nitric Ash, he DNF'd before the benefits of those soft tyres really came to him. It's absolute crazy ending again tonight.
All 20 drivers for tonight. We're only going to have 10 finish. Of course, Jeffrey, his AI car, isn't going to take the race win. I can assure you that. Wojtek's in a good position. If he kept it clean, he's still stuck behind the racing point with a damaged front wing. We see F1 Richie somehow gets himself up into P6. Sab is in P8. He's going to have to hold off his old buddy Gareth if he wants to claim that position. It looks like Gareth steams through into P7. Sab is really struggling, and Gareth probably not in the best of moods. He knows more positions and more points was up for grabs. Absolutely steam drains through down inside of P7. Wojtek doesn't have to do anything stupid. He's going to try and move on the racing point anyway. I mean, goodness knows where it's going to pan out with penalties as well. Craig is still sat in P7. He does have a penalty. I wonder how much time Gareth can make up. He's not going to make up 16 seconds worth, that's for sure, as we come into the last sector. But Wojtek's going to come under the grandstand for the last time. I just saw a little, one little drop of rain there, but looks like if you finish, you are going to get points anyways. To see Brennon's, I think, coming into the pits, maybe he's just going for fastest lap or whatever. I think he's far behind, but Wojtek's going to come around the last corner, and somehow, in the craziest of Singapore races, he's going to cross the line, but JSP takes it on penalties. So JSP is the winner for tonight. It looks like Synchronously is going to pick up the final podium spot, again on podiums ahead of Drazier. F1 Richard comes across the line in P5. Craig, after coming into the back of his championship rival, is going to come home in P6. Gareth will finish in P7. Sab, and Gareth does get faster up on the race on the last lap, so a little bit of redemption for him. And fair play to Sab. He's had a couple of mistakes up there. He's missing an end plate on that front white of his front wing, but he's going to come across the line and he's going to take home points. And that's an incredible result for him, and a well done to him. When 10 drivers didn't make it to the finish on his first race on the wheel, he has picked up a couple of points, so well done to him. Cryptox looks like he's going to pick up a point as well, flying on those soft tyres. Maybe we can go for fastest lap, but it does not beat Gav's time. And Brennon's, it looks like it's going to round out the final 10th position. Of course, as you're saying, Jeffrey will not get credited for that win. Maybe a good example of why you should never give up, Charlie, is Brennon's has just crashed into something. I'm going to ignore that. His car gets absolutely wrecked by something I'm not aware of. But Wojtek, out of absolutely nothing, I don't know where on earth you can ever predicted he would cross that line to win the race. But again, keeping it clean. JSP, on penalties, I should say. But JSP, I think he was 6th and 7th for 99% of that race, is going to pick up the maximum points tonight.
Yeah, that just shows, doesn't it, that keeping it clean is really the key on street circuits, especially, and even more so in changeable conditions. So, congratulations to JSP. That's it's well deserved, to be honest, because everyone else lost their heads. I feel a bit sorry for Luke Bailey. Obviously was a bit unfortunate with a lot of the incidents happening during the race, and probably could have picked up the win, but at the end of the day, JSP's the only one who's kept it clean, and deserved win.
and Synchronously on the podium as well. Congratulations to him. He finishes ahead of his teammate and Giorgio with a 3-second time penalty, as where F1 Richard somehow is going to get a 5th position from tonight. He's really struggling at the back, but again, give me a clean. As he so often does, the McLaren driver, he's going to pick up a real chunk of points tonight. As Craig coming into contact with his championship rival Luke Bailey, and I think that effectively does mean Luke Bailey unable to gain points on his championship rival tonight. And well, it's not the race Craig would have wanted and the way to finish it. He had such a good race coming from the back, P20, but I'm sure he'll take the points anyway. I'm sure he'll be looked at, of course, by our stewards. As Gal came across the line for good points, and Sab getting himself a few points tonight as well. Real good effort from him. Cryptox and Brennans will round out the points, and of course everyone else, all these guys, Stephen, Tinnis, Collins, Simon Palmer, Malc, Still B, Sespard, Nitrogas, Luke Bailey and Jeffrey failed to find the flag. And of course, if you enjoyed that Manic one, and if you're looking forward to more action, of course, we have plenty more here in Invictus. Of course, on Sunday night we have the Xbox League. They'll be kicking off round 11. That'll be Sunday night, 9:30 PM on Twitch. You can find that at twitch.tv/Invictus Racing League. Monday nights is brought to you by Gareth and Sab. Those guys came across the line P7 and P8 tonight. A nice move from Gareth on the last lap there on his old buddy. They bring the F1 League on Monday nights 8 PM here live on Invictus on YouTube. Tuesday night is Malc and Tim, the Realistic Performance League, 8 PM, and of course F2 is always run the same time as us, Wednesdays 8 PM by Dan and James. And of course, if you want to pick us up on the socials, you've got Instagram at InvictusRL, you've got Twitter, you can find us at Invictus. In Instagram, you can find us at Invictus Racing League. Twitter at Invictus IRL. You can find us on Facebook, and of course our website as well, where you can find all the Hall of Fame statistics on all these drivers, and of course news, photo albums, interviews, and all you could ever ask for. And I think we're just waiting for. I'm not sure if all these guys are in, because I think Charlie's doing the podium interviews tonight. As Synchronously does now join the party, so I'll let Charlie ask these guys questions.
Yeah, if all you guys are ready, please make sure you've got your voices set to always allow on the share part of the party settings. And if you are ready, JSP, I'll start with you, our race winner, because obviously Jeffrey, having left the session, is not quite classified. To be honest, yeah. I'm going to keep these I say questions fairly short, because I understand it was a really long race, taking well over an hour. I'll just let you guys explain, just give an explanation of your races, because to be honest, I wouldn't know where to start with the questions on these ones.
Yeah, to be honest, nobody's more surprised than me to be sat here. Yeah, it was always going to be obviously a wet start and a dry end to the race. Well, we thought. So I went with a kind of intermediate setup. It meant I wasn't really that quick in either kind of full wet or the full dry condition, but I was just trying to stay out of trouble, to be perfectly honest. Wasn't too bad. Lap 1 kind of stayed out of trouble. Dre Gio had a couple of half spins ahead of me, which let a few people by, but you know, it happens. And yeah, I kind of got a bit stuffed under the first pit as well, with Steele ahead of me. I think he changed his wing possibly. So yeah, that kind of held me up a bit. But to be honest, the whole race was just trying to stay out of trouble and yeah, keep it clean. I was aware that kind of Luke and Craig were ahead of me and they're battling for the title, so I was just sitting back really and letting them get on with it. It's a shame, obviously, it ended that way, but yeah, got to be happy with that, and yeah, second win, all good.
Cool, and I'll move on to Wojtek, just to keep these fairly brief. Just to explain us your race and how you saw it from your eyes. You started down in P6, which wasn't too bad, but I'm sure you had a few ups and downs during that race, because it was just crazy out there.
You're completely right. To be honest, I do like those races like divided to half and half. Half is wet and half is dry. But we've been racing so long that we even go from dry to wet again, which was kind of surprise, I believe, for everyone, especially for me. And as JSP said, I just tried to stay out of trouble, because I had almost all entire season up and down, so I just tried to bring up some points. But yeah, this podium was not really expected from my side.
Yeah. It was a good drive anyway to keep it clean along with JSP and cross over the line in what would actually be a second place. So well done. And finally on to synchronously. Just talk us through your race, because you started down in
13th, I think it was.
13th, yeah. So just explain how you navigated your way through to finish P3.
First of all, obviously I wasn't even expecting to finish top 10. I had damage under the safety car twice. I crashed twice. I had to pit like 5 times. I kept switching between 2 sets of medium tires. I kept using them because that's the only thing I had. And then as I was going along, I was falling back for like majority of the race, and towards like final 5 laps, just cars kept spinning and spinning as I went along. So as soon as I saw the yellow flag when racing, it was pretty much joy for me, because I knew that someone's off, so that's an extra position.
Yeah. That's often what it can be on a street circuit. There's a lot of people making mistakes, so all 3 of you did incredibly well to keep it clean. I will just put one question to all 3 of you, starting with JSP again. Moving on to Silverstone next week, what are your thoughts on the circuit and your chances there at repeating a good finish?
Yeah, I'd love to get on the podium in Silverstone. It's a good track for me. I seem to go well there. I'd like it to be dry, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Cool. Wojtek, your thoughts on Silverstone?
Yeah, I think Silverstone is cool. Cool for me. I believe we will see some wet session, but the real challenge will be the last one.
Yeah.
Silverstone.
The last one in Monaco is sure not everyone is looking forward to that, to be honest. Finally, synchronously, your thoughts on Silverstone. How do you feel about the circuit?
It's definitely one of my favorite circuits out of all. So I'll be hoping for at least a top 25% finish to get them good points.
Yeah, cool. So that concludes my questions. Well done to all 3 of you, just keeping it clean and keeping your heads down, and it paid off. So congratulations JSP on the win. Back to you, Harry.
Yeah, congratulations to all 3 of you. It's really nice when you get these manic races. You often see different faces on the podium. Of course, Wojtek getting his first podium since Abu Dhabi, so congratulations to him. And of course, JSP joining the season, I think from Germany onwards, not getting a podium, and now finds himself in the race win. So well done to him. And then Synchronously, of course, he's also done a really good job for Renault. Of course, after a double DNF for Alfa Romeo, I think Craig's picked up a few points as well. So. Really well done for him. Chaotic racing, Synchronously been through the walls, through the wars, all the way through the race, as it seemed like everyone did. But this way you finish by the end of lap 31. So well done to all 3 of you. It's an absolute manic race, one of the races of the season, I think, in terms of controversy, chaos, and of course all the safety cars and wet weather changes. And all 3 of you did really well in the end to finish where you did. So congratulations to you. And of course, if you enjoyed the race and you can't wait for more, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. Of course, we'll be back for round 11 in Silverstone next week, Wednesday 8 PM. Be sure to hit us up, and we hope to see you very soon. Thank you and good night.